SCP-340 is called the viral rebreather membrane. A lot of people in a recent poll that I did about what SCP reactions you guys like selected scary. And while this isn't scary in a spooky kind of way, it is definitely scary in terms of the type of stuff that we fear today, like the pandemic symptoms and stuff like that. You know, at one time I was a little bit of a hypochondriac, not diagnosed or anything, but when I started worrying about my health, I did a lot more exercise and started eating right, and I noticed that when I do stuff like that, I feel much better, both physically and mentally. I don't think about as much stuff like that, and I don't do internet diagnosis that much anymore. I feel bad, I go to the doctor. But stuff like this is really scary, and a lot of people fear it, so I think this will be an interesting one. It's by SCP Illustrated, guys. Make sure to subscribe to his channel. Let's get into this reaction.
Description: SCP-340 is produced by a human-specific virus which preferentially colonizes the nasal cavities.
Oh, like
the
sinuses,
virus cannot be identified according to the Baltimore classification scheme, leading Foundation researchers to believe it was engineered by parties as yet unidentified. The presence of genes from both HIV and the SARS coronavirus supports this hypothesis.
Ooh.
An incubation period with a mean duration of 3 days occurs upon initial exposure to the virus. Influenza-like symptoms will then develop and will persist for a mean of 7 days before clearing up. An increased production of mucus has been observed in all cases and will persist after other symptoms have ceased. Virulence is highest during the first 5 days of infection, but viral particles have been detected up to a month after exposure in Foundation trials.
He's got a lot of mucus
Anytime
on his face.
after infection, a high blood concentration of carbon dioxide will trigger production of SCP-340. When initially produced, SCP-340 is a jelly-like mucus which exudes to cover the lower half of the face, including the nose and mouth. SCP-340 in mucose form will undergo a catalytic reaction when immersed in water and will set into a bioplastic membrane. The chemical composition of the bioplastic facilitates the process. Although it causes SCP-340 to degrade, the process allows the host to breathe underwater. The membrane is flexible and does not inhibit the host's facial movement. Any tears or holes which develop due to mechanical stress or SCP-340 degradation will be regenerated within 30 seconds due to constant production of SCP-340. Virulence is drastically reduced in this stage, but viral particles have been detected in water samples contaminated with SCP-340. Environmental contact may still spread the infection. When SCP-340 is exposed to air, it dries into a chitinous substance similar to crustacean shells. The water vapor trapped inside an SCP-340 sealed respiratory system is sufficient to prevent premature hardening. The hardening process also destroys its ability, and loss of function is irreversible after approximately 2 minutes exposure to air. Once fully hardened, SCP-340 is impossible to remove without inflicting major tissue damage. It is harder than any generally known organic substance. A standard tungsten carbide drill bit required more than 15 minutes of constant use to drill a hole through 5 millimeters of dried SCP-340. Research is ongoing into methods for harvesting and using SCP-340 for industrial applications. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-340-1, 3, 4, and 5 are to be communally housed in a 10 by 10 by 2.5 meter tank with the water temperature maintained between 25 and 30 degrees centigrade. Antidepressants and broad-spectrum antibiotics are to be administered intravenously every 12 hours. Medicinal compounds may not be added to the standard nutritive paste without approval. All waste products must be properly sterilized. Any personnel who aspirate water from the containment tank must report to medical staff immediately. Addendum.
This is crazy.
Circumstances of retrieval.
Are they like stuck in those tanks forever then?
12 students at a boarding school in the United States began to produce SCP-340 during a swimming competition. 9 of these students died before a Foundation containment team could be dispatched to the site. 5 suffocated when attempts to clear airways of hardened SCP-340 failed. 2 suffocated after attempts to open alternate airways induced hardening of air-exposed SCP-340 in the trachea, and 2 died from dehydration.
Oh my
Upon
God,
arrival,
man.
the Foundation containment team quarantined the school until the infection spread could be determined. 4 additional cases were discovered who were not yet producing SCP-340. All 7 were taken into Foundation custody.
Poor
For a
things,
brief summary
man.
of the 7 SCP-340 carriers, now denoted SCP-340-1 through 7, see document 340-1.
Wow, man. Can you imagine just going swimming one day and catching something
340-2.
like this?
SCP-340 doesn't kill the host's oral bacteria, and the antibiotics can't stave off infection forever. Surgical removal of the host's teeth will be safer in the long run than trying to deal with abscesses, bone infection, and sepsis.
Oh my gosh.
Document 340-1 Inventory SCP-340-1 through -7. Subject 1, Caucasian male, aged 12. Tested positive for SCP-340 at retrieval. Subject is currently housed at site. Subject 2, African American male, aged 12. Tested positive for SCP-340 at retrieval.
12 years old.
Subject deceased. Died during surgery to insert the feeding tube. Subject 3, Caucasian male, aged 11. Tested positive for SCP-340 at retrieval. Subject is currently housed at site.
Wow, man.
Subject 4, Hispanic male, aged 12, tested negative for SCP-340 at retrieval.
Alright.
Underwent experimental treatment. The treatment failed. SCP-340 production induced. Subject is currently housed at site.
Man.
Subject 5, Caucasian male, aged 27. Tested negative for SCP-340 at retrieval.
Refused experimental treatment.
Refused experimental treatment. Voluntarily induced SCP-340 production. Subject is currently housed at site.
So that means he wanted
Subject
to
6,
undergo this
Caucasian
testing?
male, aged 12. Tested negative for SCP-340 at retrieval. Underwent experimental treatment. The treatment failed. SCP-340 production induced. Subject deceased. Voluntary self-termination.
Oh my God.
And Subject 7, Caucasian male, aged 13. Tested negative for SCP-340 at retrieval. Underwent experimental treatment. The treatment was initially believed successful.
Subject died due
However,
to
the subject died from suffocation due to unexpected SCP-340 production.
This stuff is dangerous. Dangerous, man.
And that concludes this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.
This is... It's such a weird disease, but when you think about it, it's more about dealing with the disease after it takes its toll. Like some of these ailments that people get, death is the least death is the least worrisome about all of it. Living with a condition like that and having to just stay in a tank like a fish all day, oh my God, dude, it's horrible to think about. The creative minds behind some of these SCP articles, bruh, I tell you, sick, twisted individuals, but good writers, I'll give them that. Guys, make sure to go over to SCP Illustrated channel and subscribe. Subscribe to me if you like reactions like these, and check out these videos that I think you'll love. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.